Facebook has given us a lot to think about. We'll talk about it on this edition of Tune In.
Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Here's your host, Representative Rick Crawford.
And we are back for another edition of Tune In. I am your host and your representative, Rick Crawford. Glad you could be with us. We talked about Facebook and what they've given us to talk about, basically, over the last week. And there's been some reports that Facebook may be censoring conservative news. You like Facebook, or if you don't, that's your decision. But what can we do about it? Well, there tends to be somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction to, well, we got to fix this problem. How do we fix that problem? And do you really want Congress legislating a solution to an issue that exists in the marketplace like free speech? I mean, that's already regulated under the Constitution. It's entirely their right, if they want to speak the way they want. They control their news feed. Now, as consumers and users of Facebook, probably we need to know that they have an agenda. Obviously, they're demonstrating that. And so just be careful who you get your news from. So this is one of those issues that is entirely in the realm of the free market, the free marketplace, and that free market space that you operate in if you use Facebook. And so you can choose to discontinue your use of Facebook. And that, to me, is the solution in the context of a free market. I don't think legislation to try and correct this problem is anywhere close to appropriate. And I think that what we see as legislators, we oftentimes get a little bit of a bad rap because folks view the absence of legislation as failure or inaction, when in fact, sometimes the best solution is to not legislate a solution. Sometimes the best solution is found in our actions as consumers and how we respond to a given dynamic in the marketplace. We got to do something about it. Well, let's do something about it. Take some action if you don't like Facebook. Give you an example of legislating or attempting to legislate solutions where it just doesn't work. Michelle Obama rolled out a school nutrition program. She was so passionate about it, got the Congress prior to 2010, before I got here, to implement this school nutrition program. It was rolled out officially in 2012, and it launched a firestorm of calls, letters, and so on from educators, parents, teachers, students themselves, coaches. Everybody was outraged over this new school nutrition program, and then ultimately superintendents, they've got to cash flow their school districts, and it was they were finding it very, very challenging, if not impossible, to be able to implement this policy, and not to mention the fact that children hated it, wouldn't eat their new school lunches. And so, that's the problem. But we came up with a solution without necessarily legislating. We had a group of concerned parents, teachers, and legislators, as well as superintendents, that came together at a nutrition summit. We collected comments, literally stack of comments this high, submitted that to the Secretary of Agriculture, and under his purview, he could make the adjustments necessary. And so I'm not saying we 100% corrected that problem, but it was a great step forward in advancing the wishes of our constituents as it regarded school nutrition. And that was not necessarily legislative action. That was you in action as parents, teachers, superintendents, and concerned citizens, and came to us and said, here's what we want done. Another example with the EPA is, we get farmers that'll, groups come together and say, hey, we got this problem. You need to get Fish and Wildlife and EPA and Corps and all these come to our farm and figure out how we fix this problem. And we've come to learn that if you bring them onto your farm, they're probably not leaving anytime soon. So be careful what you ask for, and think about it before you ask for it, because invariably you're going to open up a can of worms that you probably wish you hadn't when you invite a federal agency onto your property, into your home, or whatever. So it's a dangerous proposition. Most recently, and I can't let this opportunity go by without talking about this, we've gotten some calls over the North Carolina bathroom issue. And, I don't live in North Carolina, therefore I don't really have a dog in that fight. Although I do support the governor, I support the people of North Carolina in that issue. I think that it's definitely being litigated. The Department of Justice has filed suit against them. They've filed suit against the federal government. Well, adding insult to injury on this issue, the president just signed an executive order stating that all public schools have to implement a policy regarding transgender bathrooms. Now, I know we're going to get calls. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. Call us. Let us know how you feel about it. I think I know how you feel about it. I'm pretty sure you know how I feel about it. But there's no legislative solution. We have to do something different. We're going to write letters to the administration. We're going to, all of the representatives will get together and, push back. But what can you do? Certainly call us, and that's fine. Let us know how you feel. But at the local level, and for those of us who espouse conservative principles, this is the whole point of this particular tune-in edition, is to don't just talk the talk. Put your conservative principles into action. You don't like Facebook? Quit using Facebook. It's that simple. If you don't like what's happening with what the president is doing, which I think is tantamount to extortion, you're basically hijacking federal funds by saying if you don't bend to my will and my wishes, I will curtail your federal funding. And that's particularly punitive to us in Arkansas, where we struggle throughout the state. Districts are always on razor thin margins, trying to cash flow year to year. It's beyond unfair to try and force schools into this action. What can you do about it? Call your school board. Hold their feet to the fire too. And look, I'm not trying to start a battle or a firestorm with school board members or school districts, but I believe that local control of schools is the best thing for the school boards, the school districts, and the students themselves. If you believe that, then act on that and call your school board and let them know that you don't want to see them bend to this federal dictate to implement transgender bathrooms or lose federal funding. If that's what they want to do in places like Massachusetts or California or New York or whatever, that's a decision for them. But in Arkansas, that should be our decision too. And I feel pretty strongly that folks in Arkansas would agree with me on this. If you agree with me, that's the action you take. Yes, we're going to do something here. Yes, we're going to write letters. We're going to push back to the extent that we can. Sometimes we have to take judicial action, as we saw. A federal judge issued an opinion that Burwell versus or House versus Burwell, that in fact, yes, the House of Representatives was right, and on Obamacare, that it was unconstitutional. That's the action that we took. It wasn't legislative; it was judicial. So we've got a system that when we use it, it can work. But it starts with, at home, using your conservative principles and your belief in the Constitution and putting that into action. So yeah, I do want you to call and write me. That's fine. And that supports my efforts here. But I also want you to be in contact with the folks at the local level who are directly impacted by this action. So keep in mind that our conservative principles, what we believe in, is not just something to be talked about at the coffee shop. But there are times in our lives when those beliefs and those principles are going to be tested. If you really and truly believe what you say and have faith in those principles, then now is the time to act on those principles and do what you can in the free market space that you occupy and act on those beliefs. And I hope you'll join me in that effort, because I certainly will. And I appreciate you being with me on this edition of Tune In. This is something that, fairly volatile, controversial subject matter, but something that was worth talking about. As always, we want to encourage you to sound off. You can tweet us at TuneInAR1, at TuneInAR1. Give us your name and your hometown so we can properly attribute your comments. You'll see us on YouTube. You'll see us on Facebook for now. Until such time as we decide to stop using Facebook. I would like your opinion on that as well. Check out our website, crawford.house.gov. And here is a look at this week's Vote Check. Thanks for being with us.